Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jörg Fegert. I'm the president of ESCAP, the European Society of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. And I would really like to invite you to come to Strasbourg to the 21st International ESCAP Congress, which will take place from the 29th of June to the 1st of July in 2025 in Strasbourg. We are glad that the French Society of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry and Allied Professions decided to host this Congress and even to merge their own Congress with our Congress to have a big child psychiatry meeting in the middle of Europe. I hope that you all will come to see that event. I especially would like to thank Bruno Falissard, the president of the French Society, and all the members of the French Society, and especially Carmen Schröder, as the local host, the local organizer, and her local organizing committee for having us in Strasbourg. So please come to Strasbourg. Our world is changing, and our specialty is changing too. Our very successful Congress in Copenhagen focused on our professional positioning in the balancing act between clinical work, research and political demands. And balance always means that you really have to weigh different factors and to have to find a compromise. The theme of our next Congress is Beyond Nature and Nurture. And I think it's really important to overcome the conflicts and the divides between biological psychiatry, social psychiatry, between the different fields in our work and to integrate it in a greater view. And when we applied as a group for a new German Center of Mental Health for many universities, we thought about the translation cycle. And perhaps it's not really a cycle, it's also a circle that can be seen the other way around. Let me start with basic research on the genetic that we are built on, but also on the environmental factors. And when we have these risk factors and these resilience factors, we can understand better how we can treat patients. So we are in the second part of this cycle and we have to find more individual treatment strategies. Individualized therapy will be based on data we get by assessments, ecological assessments, momentary assessments, and there we can build on momentary interventions. So we have a whole change in that field, and then we have to bring it to the real world, to real world settings, and therefore we have to scale up these interventions. So that would be the circle one way through. But real world settings also mean that stigma and self-stigma hinder patients from coming into care. So we have to study the reasons for non-acceptance of psychiatric help, and we have to go back with these findings from society to basic science and vice versa. So finally, the old dualism between nature and nurture has somewhat to be overcome by a circular picture of influencing factors and a better understanding of how we can treat and in the best way help our patients. During our Congress, we want that the new findings find their way to the practical work, to the exchange of the specialists. And I think that the participation of parents and adolescents is also important for our research. We need participation. And patient-parent involvement is one of the main topics if we also want to support the families and want to have a better understanding, because they are the real experts for their problems. We as child psychiatrists, we want to have a cooperation with all the professions in our field, like school psychologists, psychotherapists, and therefore the meeting will be also a broad meeting of allied professions that work together with child and adolescent psychiatrists in the daily care of patients. With Strasbourg being the seat of the European Parliament, we also hope to reach policymakers and politicians with our Congress. We are a political specialty because the developmental chances of children depend on political decisions. And we really welcomed that the EU, the European Parliament, and the European Council published papers on the mental health crisis in Europe and really urged politicians to take action in that field. But now we want to see results. We need more funding of cooperative interdisciplinary research in our field. We need more involvement of patients, of parents, and we need more training for young people that want to work in our profession and in our allied professions. We have a tremendous lack of qualified staff in our field, and I think it's one of the big tasks for the future to invest more in training. Therefore, I would be very glad if many young physicians from all over Europe, psychologists, social workers and other professions would come to the Congress in Strasbourg to get infected by that virus of child psychiatry. That is really something very rewarding to work for the best of children and adolescents. The world is changing, and we have that change in the digital field with digital interventions, but also risk of digital harm to children. And we have to adapt. And we know it's since the old times that tempora mutantur, that the times are changing and we have to adapt. But in the adaptation, there might also be a chance to develop new systems of care in stepped care pyramids, going from early prevention to real intervention in the clinical field. Often these fields are separated by boundaries between different sectors or ministries, and we have huge differences in Europe with respect to access to care. So we have to strive for new solutions and to work together. And I hope that the Congress in Strasbourg will be a wonderful platform for a meeting, for exchange, for talking with new colleagues. And I hope to see you in Strasbourg. I would be very glad to meet you there, and I'm looking forward to see you in Strasbourg.